Jake found her at the edge of his land. She was lying under an old oak tree, almost dead. She had no shoes. She was wrapped in a dirty, bloody cloth that looked like an old bag. Her body was covered in bruises. Her hair was messy and tangled. She could barely breathe. Jake had seen many bad things in his life. He had fought in a war. His wife and daughter had died. But nothing had prepared him for this. He got off his horse quickly. When his boots hit the ground, she opened her eyes a little. She looked at him and whispered, "He'll kill you too." Jake knew who she meant. There were only a few men in the area who could hurt someone this badly, and only one lived close enough to leave her here. Jake picked her up carefully. She didn't fight back. She just let her head rest on his chest. The ride back to his house was slow. By the time he put her on the bed, the sun was almost gone. He cleaned her wounds as best he could. But her words stayed in his mind, "He'll kill you." Jake had always kept to himself. He didn't look for trouble. But something told him trouble was coming whether he wanted it or not. Jake didn't sleep much that night. He sat in his chair, watching the room where she slept. She talked in her sleep, saying things he couldn't understand. But sometimes one name came through clearly, Marcus. By morning, she was awake. Jake brought her some soup and a clean cloth. She nodded but could barely speak. Later that day, she was strong enough to sit up. Jake got out an old dress that had belonged to his wife, who had died 6 years ago from a fever. He put the dress on the bed without saying anything. She looked at the dress, then at him. Her face changed a little, less scared, more hopeful. That evening, she spoke more clearly. She told him about a boy who used to work on Marcus's ranch. The boy was only 16. Marcus caught him talking to her one night. The next day, the boy was gone. People thought he had run away, but Rose knew better. She heard digging late at night. She heard Marcus cursing. 2 nights later, she found an old well that had been boarded up with new nails and a fresh lock. Jake sat there with his hands clenched tight. He already knew Marcus was a bad man. Now he couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just about saving her. This was about what Marcus had hidden on his land. Rose had only been at Jake's place for a few days when Marcus came back. It was late afternoon when Jake heard horses coming. Marcus didn't knock. He rode right up to the porch and got off his horse like he owned the place. Jake stepped out to meet him. Marcus spit on the ground and looked toward the house. "She's here," Marcus said. Jake said nothing. "She's my wife and I'm taking her home," Marcus said. That's when Rose stepped outside. The dress was too big for her, but she stood tall and strong. "You're not taking me anywhere, Marcus," she said. Marcus couldn't believe she had talked back to him. He moved fast and grabbed her arm, raising his hand to hit her. But Jake was faster. He caught Marcus's wrist and twisted his arm behind his back. Marcus's bones cracked. Marcus cursed and backed away. People from nearby had started gathering by the fence. They didn't say anything, but they watched. And this time, they didn't look away. Jake stepped between Marcus and Rose. "If you come back here, it won't go easy for you." Marcus looked angry, rubbed his wrist, then got back on his horse. "This isn't over. Then go home and think about how you want it to end," Jake said. Marcus rode off, leaving dust behind him. But something in the air had changed. Jake looked back at Rose. She wasn't crying. She was breathing steady, like a storm had passed and left something stronger behind. 2 days later, just after sunrise, Marcus came back. He wasn't alone this time. He had 2 rough-looking men with him. And they had guns. Jake saw the dust before he saw the men. He didn't panic. He just stepped off the porch and waited. Rose stood inside, looking through the window, her hands tight with worry. Marcus stopped a few yards away. "You had no right to keep her here. She belongs to me. She's my wife." Jake didn't move. "You've had your say. Now you can leave." Marcus laughed. "She's mine. And if I have to drag her out by her hair, I will." That's when a voice called out from behind the barn. "You won't be dragging anything today, Marcus." It was Sheriff Wilson. He walked into view with 2 officers, rifles on their backs. Jake had sent word to the sheriff 2 nights ago after Rose told him about the well. The sheriff had gone to check Marcus's ranch. Behind the barn, where the old well had been boarded up, they found something. A boot. And under it, human bones. Everyone remembered the ranch hand who had gone missing a year ago. He was 16, quiet, and worked hard. He had disappeared like smoke. Now there was proof of what happened to him. The sheriff didn't ask questions. Marcus Whitmore, you're under arrest for murder. You're coming with us. Marcus froze. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The men with him backed away. They weren't paid enough for this. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Marcus cursed under his breath. Rose stepped outside slowly. She just watched. The sheriff nodded at her. Nothing needed to be said. Around the ranch, neighbors had gathered to watch. This time, they didn't turn their backs. They didn't pretend not to see. Jake stood beside Rose, steady and strong. Justice had come. Not because it was easy, but because someone finally stood up. Life slowed down after Marcus was taken away. Not in an empty way, but like the quiet that comes after a long storm. Things still creaked and the air still felt heavy from what had happened, but you could breathe again. Jake didn't ask Rose to stay and she didn't ask to leave. Days turned into weeks. She helped around the ranch, fed the chickens, and brushed the horses. Every evening, she walked to the cottonwood tree behind the house where Jake's wife was buried. She'd sit there quietly, just thinking. Jake never bothered her during these times. But one day, she came back inside holding a flower she'd picked near the grave. I hope she doesn't mind me being here, Rose said. Jake smiled. She would have liked you. They didn't say anything more, but sometimes the strongest things don't need many words. Rose started working with the smallest horse on the ranch. It was a nervous little mare that no one could get near. She brought it apples and talked to it softly, taking her time. After a while, the horse started to come closer, touch her hand, and rest its head on her shoulder. Jake watched from the porch and knew exactly what that meant. Sometimes we think we're broken for good. That no one can get close without hurting us. That maybe we're too far gone to be worth fixing. But maybe all we need is someone who doesn't push. Someone who listens and stays. In the end, both Jake and Rose found something they didn't know they were looking for. Not just safety or justice, but a quiet kind of peace that comes when someone finally sees you and decides to stay.